Two, hello, check. Check 2. It's raining, Dakadoon. It's supposed to rain, like, basically for the foreseeable future here in Montreal. Right now, it's okay. Right now, it's okay. It's a beautiful day for now. It's going to start raining later, and it's going to rain for the next... I don't know. I don't even know when it's going to stop. I don't know what all this was. I don't know what that was. I was doing some voguing there right off the bat. Not really sure what that was all about. I hope you enjoyed that, though. I thought it was smoky again. No, it's mostly cleared up. Over the weekend, it was very smoky. Like, I woke up on Sunday, I guess, yesterday, and it was like someone was having like a bonfire, like, inside my apartment. It was, and you really got the haze, that like kind of apocalyptic yellow haze over everything. It's very strange. It's very strange. Like, we were watching that Newsmax clip a few weeks, like, whenever that was really hitting New York City so hard. And the guy was talking about the smell, you know? The nice little mesquite smell. And he's kind of trying to, like, manage expectations and suggest that it's not that bad. It's true, though. It's not like... The air quality is really bad. It's like smoking packages of cigarettes when you stay outside in it. It's a kind of a nice smell, though. It's like a nice little campfire. It triggers these nostalgic memories, but you don't want your entire city smelling like that because the whole province is on fire, though. I think regardless of like whether it's pleasant or not pleasant, like it would be much worse if it was the smell of like burning plastic or some horrible chemicals spill or something. Regardless of that, though, it's still not good for you to be breathing it in. It's definitely not good to have giant toxic clouds of it hovering over, you know, massive cities full of millions of people or drifting across the Atlantic to cover Western Europe or anything like that. And it's just weird. You look up in the sky and the sun's all hazy and it's just fucking weird. It's just a weird thing. But yeah, it was pretty bad yesterday. It mostly cleared up. It mostly cleared up now. It's like it's a little bit smoky still, but it's mostly nice now. And now it's going to rain for like the next 10 days or so. Which will hopefully do something to like decrease the level of forest fires, although, you know, who knows, probably it won't. Reluctant to take such a controversial position right off the bat this week with the forest fire smoke is not good. We're going to go ahead and come out against that. We're going to go ahead and come out against the massive nation-covering forest fires situation. I'm sorry you missed the voguing, Dakadoon. It was a little of this. It was this, too. I've never done that. It was like the Christian Cage looking for all the followers type thing. All the fans, the Rob heads. Where are they? Where are those Rob heads? Oh, there they are. There they are. So I guess we should get to a little bit of wrestling talk. I guess we will get to a little bit of wrestling talk before we get going here. I did actually watch Forbidden Door last night. Not the whole thing, but the like latter half of it. What can you really say about Ospreay Omega? What can you really say about it? I don't know. It was weird because like I didn't feel the same sense of build that their first match at the Tokyo Dome had. I remember I watched it on the stream, Ospreay's promo prior to that, where you could really see the passion and the frustration was really coming through, which I really like that. And I liked at the end of the match when Ospreay couldn't win how like completely devastated that he was. And I really liked Kenny Omega's like anime final boss promo to set up the match. I didn't really feel like there was that much hype for the rematch as much as the first one was excellent. I didn't feel like there was the same level of expectation. Despite the fact that they're both really great. They're really both great wrestlers. And so I was watching the match and I enjoyed it. I was surprised by how bloody it was. It was an absolute bloodbath. To the same that the extent that we haven't seen in quite some time. And yeah, I think for most of the match, I was thinking, yeah, this is a good match. I'm enjoying this. Wasn't really like, it was amazing, but I didn't feel like I was watching anything that special or anything like that. But then the final 10 minutes or so were really something else. I think they went to like a false finish, and then went a good like 10 minutes after the false finish when it was just nonstop craziness. AEW does seem to go blood pretty often, especially Dean Ambrose. This was like a very bloody match, though. Like, this is even for the standards of a promotion that often has blood in their matches. This was like kind of the next level. Ospreay was like close, not quite there, but he was close to like Eddie Guerrero levels. That time in that Eddie Guerrero and JBL match, which is probably the worst, the most bloodiest I've ever seen. That was like the Muta scale. That was like a 10 on the Muta scale. I think that's how you measure the bloodiness. Ospreay was getting there. There was blood like dripping off his fucking head. No, it wasn't the main event. This was like 2 matches before the main event, and I actually think it became a problem because the crowd was just deflated after the end of the match, and even though there was some great stuff after, they couldn't reach really those same highs. And yeah, that Tiger Driver 91, that Ospreay hit on Omega, my soul left my body watching that. Like, it's really one of the most devastating things that I've seen in quite some time in a wrestling match. To the point that like you don't even know if it's a botch or not. Like, it's not a botch because that's just the move. It's just Omega just got dropped directly on his fucking head. It was awful to look at. It was an amazing moment, but it was awful to look at. Brutal. Really brutal stuff. People say Attitude Era was bloody when that was really ruthless aggression. That's true, Alexandro. I mean, Cena got such a credit for like being such a clean cut, like say your prayers and eat your vitamins kind of babyface. Like at the beginning of that run when he was trying to win people over, he would bleed like nobody else ever. Like he had a couple of like horrendous bloody matches, Cena, at that era. I think there was that match. I think it was the Hell in a Cell match with Lesnar and Undertaker when they both bled absolute buckets, and even Paul Heyman bled as well. Paul Heyman was the manager, and still he got busted open as well. Everybody involved in the event was just completely drenched in blood the entire time. But yeah, that goes back to the Ospreay Omega match. It was just absolutely brutal. Really did. The last 10 minutes were really crazy. Really great match. I haven't watched a lot of full matches this year, so I don't know what's the match of the year. I mostly pay attention to these things. I watch the highlights. I watch the promos. I keep my eye on what's going on, but I don't really often watch the events or watch the full matches, so I don't know if it's the match of the year or not, but it was a fucking great match. And I think that was the issue, is that the main event was Bryan Danielson versus Okada, which is like a dream match. Kazuchika Okada. An absolute dream match. And it was very good. Danielson did break his arm halfway through the match. Apparently, I didn't know if he was just selling his arm, but he apparently did fracture his arm like 10 minutes into the match. The ending to it was a little abrupt. Like, the ending was quite cool, but it was very abrupt and kind of unexpected. So I just think it was a great match, but probably was in the wrong spot on the card. And because of a couple of things, I think maybe didn't reach the same highs that maybe it could have, considering how good those guys both are. I don't know. This is wrestling, Sin Chow. This is what it is. These guys are tough. I don't know. As much as it gets made fun of as being fake and, scripted or whatever, some of the craziest and toughest people are wrestlers trying to just put on an entertaining evening for the fans, and they put themselves really through hell. it did left me wanting a rematch as well, Jay. And I liked Danielson's comments after. He was just like, he broke my arm. I want to fight him again. I'm going to break his arm. Danielson was like, I like Danielson because he's this like soft-spoken, nice guy who just really seems to get off on hurting people and wants to just hurt people and show that he's the best at wrestling. And that's really his primary concern, is just beating the shit out of and hurting the person that he's wrestling against. You thought someone was possibly dead and then someone broke their arm. That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And Bryan Danielson in that match faked a seizure. Bryan Danielson, who's had a history of traumatic head injuries and has literally talked about having seizures as a result of the injuries that he's had in the ring, faked a seizure in this match, which was very uncomfortable to look at because no one knew if it was really like something that was going on. And then he gets up like nothing's fine and like it's totally fine. Oh man, that was horrible. What a horrible man. That was such a slimy move by Danielson. I didn't see the Punk match, but although I did see him trolling the crowd at Collision, I was surprised by Toronto booing Punk. I guess Punk's just going to get booed everywhere he goes, except for Chicago, which is probably okay with him. Anyway, I really wanted to watch it just for those two matches, Ospreay and Omega and Okada Danielson. They were both very good. The 6-man tag after with Jericho, and it was such a weird mix. Jericho and Suzuki and who's Jericho's his young guy, his young boy. I forget his name. Sammy Guevara, right? Sammy Guevara, that's it. It's such a weird combination of guys. I did like the point where they all posed and Sammy was on the ground and Jericho did and then Suzuki came in to do the pose on top. That was a very funny image. I didn't see the MJF Tanahashi match, although like I was saying, I was genuinely mad at MJF. I know he's a heel and I know that's his job, just to make people mad, but the way he was like talking about and just dismissing New Japan and dismissing Tanahashi was so upsetting. And even from what I was reading, it seems like Tanahashi is almost like washed, like he's almost just not able to really wrestle anymore. But the way he was just so casually dismissing him, I was so upset. Tanahashi, who's like one of the greatest to ever do it by any objective standard. Hiroshi Tanahashi, one of the absolute best to ever do it in terms of like match quality, money drawn, stadiums filled, title reigns. Objectively, one of the best to ever do it. And the way MJF just completely disrespects him is so upsetting to me. And I get it, you know, I get it that it's a work and everything, but I genuinely get mad at MJF when he does that. So credit to him. Credit to him for being such a massive prick. I didn't see the match though. I didn't see the match. It is too bad that Tanahashi can't really wrestle anymore, apparently. So that's my review. I really only I just watched it for those two matches. I would say Ospreay and Omega lived up to and I think surpassed the expectations that I had for it. It was really something else. Really enjoyed Okada and Danielson. I don't think they quite reached the same level that they could possibly reach, so I would like to see them wrestle again. Overall, it seemed like a really fun event, though. That's it. That's my AEW Forbidden Door review. I got a lower timeline right now. That's why I wanted to make an effort to get started like on time for once, which I mostly did. I'm on a bit of a weird schedule, I guess, now. My son's in camp, but I got to pick him up at 3 every day, which cuts into the amount of time that I can do this. I think I got to sign off at 2:30 at the latest, 2:30 Eastern. So, little bit of a weird schedule. I may try to do some evening stuff as well, some gaming shit at night, just to, you know, pad my numbers a little bit. But that's what's going on for the next 2 weeks at least. I'm gonna have a 2:30 cutoff every day. Hopefully that'll give us enough time to have some productive discussions. Oh, you know what? Actually, while I'm mentioning this, I need to send a DM. About a guest on Wednesday. Just one sec. Just talk amongst yourselves for one moment. Just one moment. Almost finished here. Almost finished. Found out today the senior producer of the Daily Show follows me on Blue Sky. Marty, you're moving up in the world. You're going to ditch us. You're going to ditch me, and you're going to ditch this community to become a Daily Show producer. I see what you're doing. I see what you're up to. Okay, one sec. Okay. Okay. I said I'm on there to kill God. I get more followers than Rob. I'm doing okay on Blue Sky, even though I never post there. You know? I'm doing all right. I would probably have more if I actually posted there on any kind of a regular basis. I think I'm just going to post selfies and food pics on Blue Sky. I think that's my main thing that I'm going to do. I'm going to use it like how Instagram was supposed to be. Oh, that was good. Yeah, Giovanni, I'd like to get into this a little bit. Oh yeah, so before we talk about anything serious, I want to talk about this Russia-Ukraine stuff, and I got some bones to pick with maybe a few of my fellow members of independent progressive media about some takes that I've been seeing with regards to that. I must mention, though, that over the weekend, I had a very nice weekend, by the way. It was very relaxing. Just Geo. Okay, I can do that. I did mention this on Saturday night, because I did do a little stream on Saturday to talk about the coup that wasn't, and talk about the way that people were excited about that. I did talk about that on Saturday, but then I came back on Saturday night to do a little gaming. Did a little bit of gaming. But also, on Saturday, I made myself a nice dinner and I watched Elvis. I watched Elvis on Saturday. And I absolutely loved it. I absolutely loved Baz Luhrmann's Elvis biopic. It is so fucking good. He's what? I mean, the thing is, Sean, it's like that became the meme, you know? That became the meme about that movie. But I think if you just take away that from it, you're really missing out on a lot of really great shit that happens in that movie. Like, that's a very funny moment, definitely, and like I understand why it became a meme. But I just absolutely love this film. Austin Butler is just sensational in this movie. I would really recommend this, Doc. I haven't seen Moulin Rouge. I've never been a huge fan. I really like his Romeo and Juliet movie. I've never seen Moulin Rouge. I didn't see Great Gatsby. But I would really recommend checking out Elvis. Austin Butler in this movie, absolutely sensational. Fucking electric performance from him. All of the concert sequences are just phenomenal. Just fucking phenomenal. And I had never really had much of a connection to Elvis as an artist or as a cultural figure. You grew up when I grew up, in the 80s and 90s, and Elvis is a cartoon, you know? You remember he's almost, because at the end of his career, he was almost like a joke, right? And that's what you remember. That's kind of the sad and tragic thing about him, is if you grew up in the post-Elvis period, you just remember the caricature. You remember the big, overweight, sweaty guy with the white jumpsuit, the Vegas guy just popping pills and eating fried peanut butter sandwiches and shooting TVs. Even my American accent that I do when I want to mock American accents, my cartoonish, terrible Southern American accent that I do, that's just Elvis. That's Elvis, and I don't even know about Elvis. I never really knew much about his career. I know the songs, I know some of them. But that's my cartoon. This, so you see that Elvis is America in many ways. He's America's he's a caricature of America. This show ain't no good. My mom made us stop at Graceland on vacation. I would love to go to Graceland. I would love to, actually. I've been telling my son about Elvis too, and he seems really interested. He's really interested in Elvis. I'm honestly shocked that there hasn't been more monuments made to Elvis. Yeah, well, that's what I mean. It's become such a cartoon, and all the the Vegas, the Elvis impersonators and everything, and it's become a cartoon or a caricature of America. And I think the movie did a really good job of... Gio, we'll get there. We'll get there. I'm talking about Elvis right now. the movie did a really good job of like finding the humanity in this like iconic figure. It's weird because I grew up listening to so much 60s and 70s music, and I still listen to so much 60s and 70s music, but the idea of listening to Elvis has just never really occurred to me. You know, I know the songs. I know Hound Dog and fucking All Shook Up and Blue Suede Shoes and all this stuff, but it's just I never really saw the appeal. I never really thought about listening to that. I never really listened to his music from the 70s. I know Suspicious Minds, of course. Fantastic song. Austin Butler looks cool as Fade Ryutha. I'm not crazy about the Harkonnen design in the new Dune. I don't really like the pale, bald, worm-like guys. I'm looking forward to the new one anyways, and I'm going to see it, but I think it would be a more interesting decision to make the Harkonnens, like, beautiful. I think that would have been kind of a bit more interesting than making them look like these, like, monstrous, pale, like, fucking freaks. And Austin Butler is very beautiful. He's a beautiful man. It's like the music is fantastic in this movie. Like all the performances are like he actually did a lot of the singing and dancing and performing and stuff. Visually, it's like stunning. It's like stunning to look at and really like interesting to look at. All the concert sequences are fantastic. Amazing performances with Austin Butler and Tom Hanks as Colonel Parker. There's like a B-level underworld villain. I kind of agree with that. I like the new Dune films, but I kind of agree with that. I think that's not my ideal sort of design there. And there's some really interesting stuff also earlier in the film that's like making the connection between, you know, in the same way there's the connection between like religious music and gospel music and rhythm and blues and rock and roll, and they really like visually show that kind of progression. There's also this very explicit parallel that's made between like religious ecstasy in like a sermon and like the ecstasy that Elvis was inspiring in these like people and as young women especially in this concert performance. So there's kind of interesting kind of parallels there. I was talking on Saturday about how like repressed America was, that this one swagged up white boy just like jiggling around a little bit just caused the nation to go into a fucking absolute frenzy. Like there's something kind of funny about that. America's like post-war like sexual repression and puritanism, and the way that was kind of like shattered by artists such as primarily Elvis, but then others in the years following that. So it was funny. It was fun capturing that whole thing, and it's really like took care to show the lineage of black music as well, and the way that Elvis was like inspired by and immersed by black music and black culture, and then just made that music because that's the kind of music that he loved, and then ended up bringing it to this huge mainstream audience. And obviously there's an element of like exploitation that takes place there. I think Elvis as an artist has always been criticized for that. To me, it's not quite as cut and dry. You know, black people in America have been revolutionizing and innovating music and art now for as long as black people have been in America. With jazz and with gospel music and R&B and rock and roll and hip hop, and have been at the forefront of inventing that kind of culture, which ends up inevitably being co-opted by white artists and white production companies to be sold to and marketed to white audiences. So there's something inherently exploitative about that. At the same time, it's like I don't think that the onus of that falls to the artists. And people might disagree with that. It's not really how, basically any American culture is stolen from the indigenous or black communities, absolutely. Or other immigrant communities. I think that when the whole commerce aspect comes in, and that the racist character of the country, it's inevitably kind of exploitative. I think sometimes it's a little unfair to hang that on artists. Like, I don't think artists, like white artists, are necessarily being like, I'm going to steal, like consciously saying like, I'm going to steal this black music and become very wealthy and famous from bringing it to people. But it's really just like, that's how all art has always worked, is that something gets innovated and then people are inspired by it. It finds an audience and then lots of other people start doing the thing. That's become this popular wave. So when you add in this element of race and exploitation, that does like muddy that up. And I definitely think there's a real the racism and the exploitation is coming from the record companies and the managers and the radio stations, you know, and you know the market, and like that's they'll market white artists where they wouldn't market the black artists that are making the music in the first place. That's kind of fucked up. But I think like, you know, for artists are just inspired by the things that they like. And they take pains in this movie to show Elvis when he's a kid being immersed in this black music and black culture and going to black churches and seeing black blues musicians and just falling in love with that music and just wanting to do that. You know, and all the exploitation that's happening, you know, that element is definitely there, but I don't really know if it's a conscious decision on the part of these white artists. Maybe some white artists are just consciously stealing and not giving the credit for it. I don't know, but in this film anyway, it's portrayed as kind of this organic process, and the film does go to great pains to give credit to black culture and black music and draw the parallels between black culture and black music and Elvis's music. And even there's moments as well where there's like hip hop. There's like these like kind of music video style sequences where hip hop is playing, and it's kind of jarring because it's like this 50s or 60s or 70s period piece, but I think it's interesting to feature hip hop in that kind of a story as well when you're talking about art and exploitation and black music and the way that this kind of culture is informed by black music. Anyway, it's an interesting discussion, you know? It's an interesting discussion. I don't want to like absolve Elvis or any other white artists for profiting off of like black culture and black music and becoming wealthy and successful over it. I don't want to just absolve them of all that. You know? It's an interesting discussion though, and I think the movie does go to great pains to make sure that connection is like spelled out for people, that like that's where that music is coming from. And that's where that culture is coming from. I love Bubba Hotep as well. Bruce Campbell was a very good Elvis. How accurate is the movie's depiction of his life? I think fairly accurate. I mean, it covers a lot of ground, and it's a really great portrayal from Austin Butler. I like your earlier take where you didn't see the appeal. I would recommend checking it out, honestly, Sinchao. It's like I wasn't really expecting to like it all that much. I saw, and I didn't really see the appeal. It was Jesse Hawken, who has become a big Elvis head, that I saw. He was talking about it a lot, and Jesse always has interesting takes about these things. So he made me want to kind of at least like check it out. I had no idea his manager was a weird Dutch grifter either. I thought Colonel Parker, Elvis's manager, you see pictures of him and he's this big, good old boy Southern guy. I always just assumed he was a good old boy Southern guy, and he's this weird fucking Dutch man. I had no clue. I had no idea. Yeah, the Beastie Boys were treated with a lot of skepticism before started earning their spot over time, as they too were just sort of engaging in the culture they grew up with. Yeah, I think that's kind of what's going on. It's like that's just the shit that he's immersed with, and what he's growing up with, and the things that he liked and that inspired him. And when you're an artist, you get inspired by things, and you get fixated on it, and you want to, you know, when you love kind of music or whatever, you want to be totally immersed in it. and you want to emulate the people that are your heroes, right? Also, the movie does kind of suggest too that Elvis had, because of his connection to the black community and the amount of time that he spent like immersed in that community, was more socially conscious, but was really kept from ever expressing that kind of thing because he wanted to be kept as this pristine, like kind of like a, this pristine, wholesome, like not wholesome. He wanted to be, all the rough edges wanted to be sanded off. The sexual innuendos and the dancing and the black music and stuff, that wanted to be sanded off so it could be held up as this kind of non-controversial iconic figure. So I don't know how much truth there is to that. And yeah, it gets into his later period where he wants to leave. He wants to go do different things. He wants to tour around the world, but he's basically just like held. He's basically like held almost as a prisoner. And he just can't get away from the clutches of this fucking weird Dutch guy that has this total control over all his career and won't let him leave the country because he can't leave the country because he has like not a real identity. So it gets into this later period in Vegas when he's just like, that's the thing. In the 70s, he's just completely, he wanted to be a federal drug agent, but he was completely drugged out of his mind the entire time. Like he was just completely like, he had become the caricature of himself at that point, I think. He was just constantly, he was just like a puppet, essentially, or like a performing act that when he was not performing, they would inject him with drugs so he would rest, and then he would wake up with more drugs, and he was just like the drinking and the exhaustion and years and years and years of that. That's why he died when he was like 42 years old. But there's this amazing moment.
This is some guy, Rob Russo, some leftist based in Canada.
Hey, Lucid, Michael Jackson as well, yeah. And you see the way that becoming this iconic performer is like this dream come true, but it's also hell in many ways as well. It's this like prison sentence that you get, while also getting everything that you could ever want in return. Lucid Fox described you as a human-shaped pyramid. I don't know what that means. Well, don't worry, but we don't use the P word around here, actually, so I don't really appreciate that too much, but thank you very much, Lucid, and welcome. Thank you for the raid, Lucid. Not thank you for that description, but I told them to join your companionship dodecahedron. Thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you for the raid, Lucid. I appreciate it. Welcome, raiders. Thank you for joining the stream. I'm Rob. Do you like my avatar shirt? If you can, smash the follow button. If you want to chat, if you want to join the community, please smash the follow button. I would appreciate that a lot. I'm creeping ever closer to 9K. I'm creeping ever closer to 9K followers. Every other follower helps. So please, if you can, smash the follow button or just press it lightly. Just give it a little press. I don't know, just whatever feels good for you. You can smash it if you want. Sometimes it's kind of satisfying. We're all kind of feeling frustrated. We're all feeling kind of alienated. So sometimes it just feels good to just give it a little smash, or you can give it a little gentle caress. Just gently caress the follow button. At 9K, does he do a hot tub stream? No. As I've repeatedly stated, at 1,000 subs, I will do some kind of a bathtub stream, and we got a ways to go. So I feel totally comfortable making that claim, making that promise, without really feeling like I'm going to have to follow through on that at any time.
Good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Smash the follow and subscribe, Lucid Fox folks.
Thank you as soon as I mentioned tub stream, Plunger Man, immediately. Thank you for the 21 months resub at tier 2, Plunger Man. Very close to that highly elite, highly exclusive 24-month, 2-year TRRS sub badge. Golden. Shimmering golden. Yeah, that's why I feel comfortable saying that I'll do the tub stream. And it's still one I tried to fix some things on my... Oh, fuck. I'm sorry, chat. Where'd you go? Where are you? Come back, chat. Come back. Come back. Come on, let's type something. Just type anything. How to pronounce dodecahedron. Dodecahedron. Sorry, I made you disappear because I've got to manually update my sub goal because it just doesn't update now for some reason. And I love that, and it makes me happy. Anyways, I was just talking about the movie Elvis. So I don't know if our new chatters, if you've seen this film, Elvis, the Baz Luhrmann film. I watched it over the weekend. I really, really enjoyed it. I really liked it a lot. It's given me a new appreciation for Elvis, both the iconic figure, and as an artist as well. I think that was one thing as well. It's like you can talk about cultural appropriation and whether Elvis like gave proper credit to the artist that he was borrowing so heavily from, that he was influenced by. You can talk about that, but I think one thing you can't deny is that he did have a really unique ability to connect with an audience. He really, really did. And was a fantastic singer and performer. Like it was not for no reason that he became so much of a huge, famous celebrity and such an icon. He really was a fantastic singer and performer. There were no squibs that I know of. I don't know. He does shoot a gun, but he shoots a TV. Yeah, deletion, I think that's kind of up for debate. I think he did give quite a lot of credit to these and took great care to talk about the way that he was inspired by rhythm and blues and gospel music and black artists. But what is undeniable is that he did take this music that had been innovated by the black community and brought it to this white mainstream audience and became a massive icon as a result of that. But a hugely talented person, amazing performer, amazing singer. And this really comes across in the film. And I got to talk a little bit about the ending. And so it's a biopic, like you know what the ending is. I talked about cartoonish version of Elvis that you remember if you grew up in the post-Elvis period. You remember the overweight, sweaty guy in the white jumpsuit. Like that's how you remember this guy, you know, dying on the commode. Yeah. And a beautiful man too, like an incredibly handsome man. And even Austin Butler is very handsome, very, very handsome. But you look at that old period Elvis stuff and even the stuff is 69 comeback special in 69 when he does the comeback special and he's in the black leather jacket and he's just like, I don't know if anyone has ever looked cooler than that. There's that thread on Twitter. That kind of quote tweet prompt on Twitter. No one has ever looked cooler. I genuinely don't know that anyone has ever looked cooler than Elvis in that 69 comeback special, which is like totally replicated seamlessly in this movie. But I got to talk about the ending. And in the ending, like they don't show a lot of that later period. He died in 1977. Like I think they basically fast forward from the early 1970s when he's just starting the casino circuit and it's supposed to be one thing and then it turns into 2 years, then 5 years, and he just kind of gets trapped there. And like I said, he's just slowly going crazy, just in this life of like total excess and addiction and, abuse and fucking, he just slowly kills himself over that period. But food as well. Yeah, absolutely. But there's this moment in the ending of this film and they show one of his last performances that he ever did in 1977, and you can find this footage online, and they replicated this footage like completely perfectly. And yeah, he's fat, he looks, you can still see the beautiful man inside, but he looks like shit. He looks like a husk. He can hardly move, you know. He can hardly move around. He's being helped around. He can barely talk. He's like out of breath just from talking. And he sits down at the piano, and he's got like, you know, he's mumbling, and you can barely understand anything he's saying. And this guy is holding a microphone in front of his face, and he sings Unchained Melody. He does a cover of Unchained Melody, and it is so fucking good. It is so powerful, and it's just like his physical form is deteriorating, but he still just absolutely crushes this song and does this absolutely incredible performance that's just like hits these amazing marks and these amazing like high notes, and it's like so powerful and so operatic, and there's just something beautiful about it, you know. There's something so beautiful about it. He's like he's near death physically. He's near death, and it's just so fucking amazing. It's really fantastic, and you can see the footage of it online. Like they really recreated this footage. True story, Elvis showed up at the front gate of the White House to go chill with Nixon, who I think was because of his following. Elvis had a pistol on him. Secret Service wouldn't let him in for obvious reason. Nixon ordered Secret Service to let him in with the pistol. Yeah, well, he was just completely fucked up. He was an addict. He was like totally drugged up on downers at night, uppers during the day. You have Colonel Parker like filling his head with all kinds of stuff about like security. You know, John Lennon got shot, and well, no, sorry, that was 1980 that happened. But like, you see like JFK and RFK and MLK, and you see this idea that he's under this threat is being like spoken to him, and he's like, so he's just completely fucking paranoid and addicted and messed up. Later era Elvis, he lived his life from the guy from Disco Elysium. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it is true. But that's what's amazing, though, is you see him in that context weeks before he's dead, and he just looks like absolute shit. And he does this performance of Unchained Melody, and it's just fantastic. It is just so great. And it's moving, you know, it's moving. It's beautiful, and it's heartbreaking, and like, I have not stopped thinking. I watched it on Saturday, and I have not stopped thinking about it. I've not stopped thinking about it. I thought it was just really good. And I would really recommend people see Elvis, Baz Luhrmann's Elvis. And really, I'm sorry to relitigate this as well. I'm sorry if there's any Everything Everywhere All at Once heads in the chat that are going to be offended by this, but I think it really drives home how ridiculous it was. I'm sorry that that film won every single major award. You know, it's just, there was a lot, and it was not even that bad. You know, I didn't hate it. I thought visually, like editing wise, it could have won. There were some very nice performances in it. I don't want to take anything away. I didn't really like it all that much, but there were some good things about it that I can recognize. But the idea that it won every single fucking award, and like, I think is pretty ridiculous. And I think Elvis definitely should have gotten a lot more consideration for Best Actor, for Best Director, for Best Picture of the Year. I think it was right up there. It was definitely my Best Picture of the Year that did not take place on the moon of Pandora. It was the Best Picture of the Year that did not feature any blue aliens or actors. Last second of every Succession episode. Oh, that should be good, Ben. Why don't you post that in the Discord, in the Succession channel? I loved actually, there was that, I saw a thing of like the first line that every character says and the last line. And the first line for Kendall Roy was like, the moon of Pandora. Well, it's a moon and it's named Pandora. That's right, it's a moon of a big gas giant. And the first line for Kendall Roy is like, yeah, let's go. And the last line is, pardon me, maybe if we could just reschedule and we can, and like that's his last line. Is this the Tom Hanks Elvis movie? Yes. Yes. I absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved Elvis. And was listening to a lot more Elvis over the weekend afterwards, which is a catalog that I've just never really explored, especially like his 70s music. That's what I mean. Like, you kind of dismiss Elvis as a figure because of how like cartoonish that he became, but like his 70s music is still really good. Like, even in that like Vegas hotel run, as fucked up as he was in his life, still just an absolutely iconic performer and an incredible voice. Incredible. Closing my eyes of thinking of the Dan. Well, I would love to see the Dan biopic. In fact, I have one all plotted out in my mind, Sinchel. I hope that I end up getting to make this movie. But the Dan, another band that also stole completely whole cloth from black music and Latin music. Like the Dan's first single, "Do It Again." It's like this like Santana style like Latin rhythm, you know. They're heavily influenced by black music, but I don't think that makes them any less talented, or I don't think we need to like criticize them for being inspired by or you know, taking that kind of those sounds and rhythms in the black community and turning it into their own thing. It's not the influence, it's the money, the Elvis money. Well, that's the thing, and Elvis was like, he wasn't even seeing a lot of it, because like his corrupt manager was taking it all, and it was all going into like this like lifestyle basically that had been created, and financing a lifestyle for like dozens or hundreds of people that were like hanging around him as well. Anyway, I really loved it. I really did. I was really surprised by how much I enjoyed it. Wasn't expecting to enjoy it that much. Only a couple weeks until Mission Impossible. I think I might go see the new Indiana Jones as well. Someone mentioned The Bear season 2. Is that whole season like released now? Because I did also finish season 1 of The Bear over the weekend, which I really enjoyed also. So looking forward to season 2 of that. What's From? Season 2 of From. I thought your comment was cut off or something. Did you see the latest Always Sunny? No, because I'm getting caught up. I'm on season 11 of It's Always Sunny. I've been watching a couple of those every night. Every time I watch a show set in Chicago, I want to go to Chicago. I do really want one of those Italian beef sandwiches, I'll tell you that much. And I'm supposed to be going to Chicago in a couple months to go to is it the DNC that's there? I'm supposed to go to the DNC. It's like, we'll see if I'm going to be able to swing it, but if I do go, we'll have to do some kind of a Chicago TRRS meetup. We can meet up at the Bean. Go meet up at the Giant Bean and get some Italian beefs. At the Bean. Chad, will you go and eat Italian beefs with me at the Bean in Chicago? I think the DNC is the year after in 24. Okay, well then it's not something we have to worry about too much yet here. Slightly Tethered says no. Wow, okay. Okay, I see. I see. We can have a pool party at my house? Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Absolutely. Well, if it's next year, then I'll have more time to like prepare and make sure that I can go. No beans. So in fact, why don't I just go ahead and say next year, DNC, Chicago, TRRS, meetup. And I'm supposed to be going to the RNC as well. So we'll see if I can pull. This is going to be a big thing for me to actually go and do some journalism and cover these things and go to the US and everything. As of now, I'm planning to go to both though, which I think would be cool. It's always been kind of a dream of mine, to cover the conventions. You see like, Hunter S. Thompson and these classic old conventions being covered by these like the RNC's in Milwaukee, I think. Yeah, it would be for the insurgents. Yeah. It'd be cool. It'd be kind of a lifelong, kind of a dream for me to go and cover those just as a journalist, and not as like a Republican versus Democrat thing, but just going down there and being part of the history, I want to be at the RNC. I want to sit with Dan Bongino. I'm aiming for it, Sin Chow. I'm aiming for it. I don't want to make any guarantees. But I'm aiming to be in Chicago and Milwaukee for the DNC and the RNC. I'm sure I would like Milwaukee. I think Milwaukee is pretty close to being culturally Canadian, I'd like to get some, what I get there, some cheese curds, some sausage, some beer. I think I'll fit right in. Everything I know about Milwaukee is from Wayne's World. It used to be known as Milwaukee or the Good Land. The home of one of America's only socialist mayors. Milwaukee has had its fair share of visitors. Have Lukashenko on the show as well. Yeah. Okay, sorry to do a little business there. Montreal actually looks cool, and I've never been. Well, Montreal, honestly, is just a world-class city. It's, I'm biased because I live here, but it's genuinely, I've been to a fairly substantial number of cities around the world, and it's one of my favorite cities in the whole world. It's some of the best food ever, like anywhere. It's interesting culture. I think if you're in America too, it's like Europe is very far away, but you can go to Quebec or go to Montreal and get a little bit of that kind of, it's different. There's just no place that's like Montreal in all of Canada or the US, It's really its own kind of unique place. Montreal is the only genuinely fantastic Canadian city. It's not even close. I mean, I like Toronto. Toronto's just so expensive, and it's so like, because of how much more expensive the cost of living it is in Toronto, everyone's like in this like rat race kind of mindset, and it just stresses me out. I can't handle that shit. Montreal is very like, you get it done when you get it done kind of thing, And Vancouver is very beautiful as well, but also very expensive and a lot of social problems because of the decades of neoliberalism there that have created a lot of big problems. I would really recommend anyone come to Montreal, though. I would like to, do a live thing here this summer. I've been thinking about it for a while, and I should just book a small place and just fucking do it. TRRS live, for real. We'll see. How much did it cost to book Barfly? Could do it at Barfly. I'll have to look into how much it costs. Stay tuned for that. Barfly would be a good place to do a show. A dive bar in the Plateau, Montreal. Robin eating an A&W burger. Those are good burgers. Those are very good burgers. Those are some of the very best fast food burgers. Those A&W burgers. Do it September 28th to 29th, and I will be there. Okay, we'll see. I'll try and I'll at least look into it and find out how much it would cost to rent the space. It couldn't hurt to do that, and then we can talk about times. Maybe we can donate to a fund to get it to happen. I mean, people that subscribe to this channel are donating to the fund. Like, I can't really start asking for like people, subscribe to this show, but also donate to this to do this other thing. I mean, there's a limited number of people in this community, I can't like fucking, if we had like 2,000 people that were here like hanging out every day, it would be one thing, but I'm going to be like, subscribe to the show every single day that I do this, and also donate to this other thing. On that note, folks, I'm at one sub out of my daily goal of 35. So if you do enjoy this program and you do want to ensure that it stays on the air,
you can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
And you just want to support the content that I do here on twitch.tv/Rob Rousseau. The only way this show stays on the air is through the very generous contributions of the community members. So please, if you can, subscribe to TRRS. It costs $5 per month. It's totally free with an Amazon Prime account, which you can convert to a Twitch Prime sub. Every little bit helps. You can, of course, gift subs as well.
You can
and
count on
any
me.
gift
You're gonna have good
of
old Rob
5
to, talk
subs
you through
or
all this.
above does not only does it trigger a very fun little alert animation, but it was all the AEW talk. They don't draw. I don't think the wrestling talk is a big draw anyways, but I love to do it because I love to talk about wrestling. Not only does a gift of 5 subs or above trigger a very cool and fun
You've just
alert
become
animation,
an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
but it instantly rockets you right up to the elite tier of the Friendship Triangle system. That's Twitch's only 2-dimensional triangle-shaped friendship access and trickle-down clout tiered reward system. The only such system that exists on this entire platform of millions of channels, millions of communities. The only one that exists. Thank you so much to elite community member Metal Dipshit for the 5 gifted subs. I really appreciate that. Thank you also to valued community member Fart Party 69 for the gifted sub, and thanks to OnlyFacts as well for the gifted sub. Thank you. And if we have any other takers, again, I have a shorter timeline this week. I got to be out of here in like a little over an hour. So if you can, if at all possible, if you're a lurker or a non-subbed member and you want to support this community, you want to join the community, which is really a wonderful, dynamic, incredible, life-changing opportunity, and you also want to get some of the very best tiny little images, some of the very best tiny little images on the entire platform of Twitch could be yours for the low price of $5 per month. That's barely anything, folks. That's barely anything. Some of the very best tiny little images you can find on this entire platform. You know?
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
TRRS robbed.
You can count
Pizzicata.
on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Thank you for the 7 months Tier 1 Pizzicata. Very much appreciated. And thank you also to Gen X Bushy for the 2 gifted subs. Thank you so much, Gen X Bushy. Really appreciate all the support. Thank you. So we do have a hype train now going, folks. So remember, if you contribute to the hype train, if you subscribe to the channel now, not only did you get the tiny little images that you get with subscribing to TRRS, but
you can count on me.
But
you're going to have good
as
old
well,
Rob to
some
talk you through all this.
exclusive hype train tiny images as well. Thank you so much, Diego, for the gifted sub also. Thank you for that. If you swallow any apple seeds, make sure you smoke some cigarettes after. The cigarette smoke will suffocate the apple seed bacteria in your stomach. That sounds like something that like a crooked cigarette sponsored doctor would say in like the 40s or 50s or whatever. Where it's like, some say an apple a day keeps the doctor away, but I say an apple a day is actually dangerous to your health. Swallowing apple seeds can increase apple bacteria in your stomach. The one way to deal with that is smoking a nice pack of Laramie Golds, unfiltered. You know, it's like one of those things. Oh, it's from It's Always Sunny. Okay, there we go.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old
I didn't think
Rob
that made
to,
sense
talk you
as like an
through all
actual
this.
thing. Everyone had that mid-Atlantic accent at that time. Thank you, Gwynny. Thank you for the gifted sub, Gwynny. Very much appreciated. We are 50% of the way through this level of the hype train, folks. We're on the train to level 4. Probably I want to say probably a 5 sub gift would do it. Would get us to level 4. And wouldn't that be exciting? Sorry. Folks, we're just 2 minutes away from level 4 of this hype train. So once again, friends, if you want to, and I'm going to talk about important, serious stuff for the next hour, okay? I'm going to see if I can make the number go up. I'm going to have a tight hour to talk about important geopolitical issues after that. And then, so I just have to do this brief segment where I try to make the number go up. Because I'm here on Twitch, and every day I have to make the number go up so Jeff Bezos can have add another bathroom to his mansion. Okay? That's just what I have to do on here. So if you'll just indulge me for a few moments. That's right, folks. And a few other sub-gifters could get us to all the way to level 4 of this hype train. And remember, a gifted sub, the low cost of $5, not only does it support this community and support the work that I do here on Twitch, you do get access to some of the very best tiny little images on the entire platform of Twitch. And you join Twitch's only, the highly exclusive and elite Friendship Triangle System.
Count on me. You're gonna have good old
the Friendship
Rob
Triangle
to,
System, which is
all
Twitch's
this.
only two-dimensional triangle-shaped friendship access and tiered reward and trickle-down tiered reward system. A dynamic, exciting community that will change your entire life. This is an opportunity for you. It's not just an opportunity for me. This isn't about me. This isn't about subs. And thank you, Pizzicata, for the gifted sub. This is about you and your life and improving your situation and decreasing your alienation and decreasing your isolation and joining a wonderful community of supportive, like-minded individuals. Many people that have participated in this community can attest to the fact that it is a life-changing and exciting and positive experience. And we're 20 seconds away, folks. A few more gift subs could possibly get us to level 4 of this hype train. Let's keep this hype train going, folks. We're tantalizingly close, achingly close to making it to this next level. And I don't think it's going to happen, but that's okay. That's okay. That's still alright. I still am going to take a few minutes to try and do this. Rob has helped me to hate my country, but I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to do it. Every sub feels like Rob giving you a little kiss on the forehead. And indeed, it feels like I'm getting in return a little forehead smooch as well. So folks, are there any other takers? Is there any other generous community member out there? Some extremely generous community member that wants to support TRRS, that wants to ensure TRRS stays on the air? What would you do tomorrow if TRRS just ceased to exist? It's likelier than you think. The only way it's able to exist is through the amazingly generous community members who are willing to subscribe and gift subs and tips and all those things. Without those things, unfortunately, this community that I love so much and that you love and this content will just cease to exist. And I know that no one wants that. I know that no one wants that. And folks, just another no, you would cease to exist as well. That's right. You would just snap out of existence like the Avengers movie. So do any folks, we have another tight hour to talk about important geopolitical issues. Do any other generous community members want to help get me out of this segment so I no longer have to continue doing this? I no longer have to continue trying to make the little number at the bottom of the screen go up. And then I can continue talking about important news and politics and geopolitical issues like we normally talk about. I would love certainly to just end this segment. I would like to end this segment right now. I actually don't like doing this. But it's funny when you say these things like with the music in the background, like with the exciting music. This is the NHL 95 music, by the way, which is one of my favorite Sega Genesis themes. So, yes, any other fine, wonderful, possible new community members want to support this channel, join this community, and ensure that TRRS, your favorite platform for geopolitical analysis and commentary and discussion and interviews, as well as banal subjects like snacks, beverages, energy drinks, Apple quality, noodles, all of these things are discussed regularly on the show, and if you want to see that kind of thing continue, you must subscribe to TRRS. If just one person now can subscribe just so I can end this segment without being embarrassed. I can't, now that I've committed, I can't just stop. Otherwise, I'm setting a dangerous precedent, you know? I literally have to just continue until at least a few more people subscribe. So it's literally this whole segment, which is draining my will to live, can end now. You can let me move on with dignity. You can let me maintain a small amount of dignity. I know I don't have much left.
You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
I know I don't have much left after, going on 3 years of doing this.
You can count on me.
I can get out of this segment with a tiny amount of dignity remaining, though. Isn't that something that's... Even if that's something that,
You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all
boy,
this.
there we go. Like people taking pity on me.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
People taking pity on me. I'm sorry to do that to you, folks.
You can count on me.
I'm sorry.
You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Marty, I really appreciate the gifted sub. You do so much for the community, Marty. That shouldn't be necessary, but I really appreciate it.
You can
Thank
count
you
on
for the
me.
gifted
You're going to have
sub.
good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Thank you, Anon, for the gifted sub as well. Thank you, Sikalufakis.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Rob dipping into the secondhand embarrassment well. You gotta go with what works, you know?
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to
you gotta go
talk
with what
you through
works.
all this.
And thank you very much to Anonymous Gifter for the 5 gifted subs. Our beautiful, generous, Christ-like anonymous gifters. We love him, folks. I very much appreciate that, Anon. Thank you for the 5 gifted subs. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry to manipulate you in that way that I was just doing, but I have to do it. I know everyone understands that dynamic. You're on Twitch, you just have to fucking do it. But doesn't make it any more pleasant for me. What's going on? I came here while I was doing invoices, just Rob talking about how he's disgracing himself. Yeah, so just basically another normal day on here, essentially. Was my music playing in the background that whole time? God damn it. In sales, it's all fair. Just a few more sales. I was close to getting the monthly bonus, and was going to be able to take my hospitalized child to a special treatment. But if no one else can, that's not true. That is a lie. That is a lie. That was not accurate. I do have a child, and I do have to take care of them, and I use the income from the Scream to do that. That is true. I'm not gonna pretend that there's some kind of like extra situation going on top of that. Third prize is you're fired. Summer camps do be expensive. Fucking yeah, tell me about it. Tell me about it. I'm actually in like borderline panic mode about my like finances. You know that situation when it's like you're not panicking yet, but you're looking at the horizon and there's this kind of like question mark coming down the horizon. And it's like, you can start panicking about it then, but it's like, I'm going to postpone that until a little bit later, till it's really like right in my face. So that's the mode I'm in right now when it comes to my financial situation. Old Gil really needs this one. For sure. I'm kicking the can down the road there. I'm getting into full panic mode about that. About my financial situation. It's my secret, Cap. I'm always panicking about finances. I mean, that's a smart way to be. That's a smart way to be. But, you know, I kick the can down the road on those ones until it gets really bad. That's what I mean. It's like it's going to put me in the grave. It's like you can't live like that at the same time. It's like sometimes it's completely impossible not to, but, you know, it's hard. It's hard to live like that. Anyway, I am working on more, like I really need to work this summer on, you know, cultivating some more stuff. Diversifying. It's just all of existence. It sure is, yeah. I mean, it's the funny thing. It's like, I think I had set a number of like, if I just get to this number, I'm going to be okay. And I reached that number a while ago. And it turns out, no, I'm not actually okay. It turns out that I'm not. Rob NFTs to hand out to trick-or-treaters. Yeah, we could do that. Okay, I'm going to finish my apple. We'll try to have some serious discussion. It's hard to have serious discussion when you're munching on an apple. Thank you so much to everyone that supports the show. Really, I really don't want to guilt trip people about supporting this show. People are so supportive and generous, and I will never lose sight of that. Apple rating? You know what? I think I waited too long after taking this out of the fridge. It's like kind of room temp, which is fine. It tastes okay. I like a nice crisp cold apple to bite into, though. I think I waited too long to munch on this one. And it's quite hot right now also. Yeah, I put my apples in the fridge. Yeah. Fridge apple guy. The ultimate hater move. Funding your nemesis so he has to keep streaming. This one weird trick that the streamer hates. Are you under a death cloud too? Not as much now. Over the weekend, yes. Hey. Agag. I got a Patreon sub. Thank you for the Patreon sub. Agag. That's kind. Kind of you. I don't push that nearly enough. Probably not, Marty. Like, the thing about merch is that it's very expensive to like print and mail stuff and store stuff. So probably if I was willing to live with a bunch of boxes of shit and I did all the mailing and stuff myself, maybe there would be more profit margin on merch, but I don't want to do that. And like many of you have bought merch for the show and t-shirts and stuff, which I think is fucking fantastic, but it's not this like constant thing, you know. I'll put out a new design. Some of you will buy it and that's wonderful, but it's not this like reliable source. It's really just something that's cool that we can all have. And I genuinely like the merch and I wear it often because I think it's cool, but No, it's not hoodie weather right now at all. It is not at all. I mean, I'm wearing tiny little shorts and my Avatar shirt right now, and it's very warm. I am trying to figure out some new stuff. Oh, excuse me, just one sec. Got an apple chunk. I did just recently create the theme music for this podcast that's coming out, and trying to get a little bit more into like producing podcasts and consulting and doing music and that kind of stuff, which I have a ton of experience and knowledge about. So really working over the next couple of months to try and like make that work and try to get some actual clients and maybe some bigger clients as well who actually have money to spend on these things. So that is something that I'm working on. I mean, honestly, it's a good way to get into what I wanted to talk about here. And maybe there's like a video we can watch about Russia and Ukraine and what went down this weekend. But, you know, it's always been a challenge for me on here to stay true to my beliefs when it comes to especially like foreign policy issues, and like the whole Russia-Ukraine thing has been a really difficult time for that reason. To stay true to my beliefs while also trying to grow this community, and which is something that I need to do to like earn a living. And that's always been tricky. Like I've talked about before, I think if I towed a certain line, or if I, you know, did this stream in certain ways, like maybe I would have grown a lot more by now. Maybe if I did debates with Destiny or Vosh or whoever, I would grow the community. I would get to a point where I was maybe more sustainable. But I don't want to do that. I don't like doing that stuff. I don't want to talk to those people. And I don't want to tone down my analysis either. I gotta blow my nose here. Just one sec. Sorry. Has anyone ever told you, yeah, I know I'm muted. No, that's fine. I know I'm muted. It's okay. I'm not muted anymore. Has anyone ever told you your voice sounds just like Sam Sater? No, I don't think anyone has told me that. Although, it's interesting you bring that up. It's interesting that you bring that up, because I really like Majority Report and Sam Sater, and I often get raids from the Majority Report, which really helps me out. It helps the viewers it helps me have viewers, which brings new people into the community, you know, that helps with the algorithm, you know. I will say though, I was trying to do this without getting specific about it. Or let's just use that as an example, okay? We'll use that as an example. You know, Majority Report, who I don't always agree with about absolutely everything, but I like Sam a lot. I like Emma Vigland. I like Matt Leck, who I know is the producer there, who raids this channel sometimes, which I appreciate a lot. Which I really appreciate a lot, and I don't want to fuck with, really. And, you know, there are other independent media outlets like that as well, with other people that I have these kind of like connections with, professional connections, people that I admire and respect, who I maybe have somewhat, you could describe them as friendships with. I will say on one of these, I said it's a big butt coming, on a prominent independent progressive media show, I won't say which one, that I saw the other day. I saw some stuff that I really thought was a bad enough takes that it felt important to bring it up without naming any names or trying to cause any controversy or do any call outs. Again, like, this is the dilemma for me, folks. It's like I literally can't afford to like burn bridges with certain people in the progressive media communities. I literally can't afford to. I need to make a living from doing this stream. And I can't be like, every single time I hear something that I don't like, be like, oh, fuck you. Oh, that's bad. It's awful that you said that. It's a piece of shit. You know, it's like I literally can't do that. I did see some comments about Russia, Ukraine, and the idea of the treatment. There's some story about Russian prisoners of war being beaten, tortured, or killed. And I saw this come up on on a certain progressive media show. We don't need to get into the specifics of, which I think has consistently been not very good on this issue. And this idea that they really downplayed this. They downplayed this like violence against Russian prisoners of war. And basically not only downplayed it, but kind of suggested that it was justified. And I think the words that were used were like, well, there's a lot of anger. There's a lot of anger there. Or civilians, yeah. And this is a broader discussion about this whole thing that happened on the weekend and Wagner Group as well, and all these people that were cheering on like a civil war in Russia. People were cheering on the Russian government being overthrown, despite all the consequences that we know from prior history that would have against like the average person in Russia. And so yeah, in this specific context, talking about prisoners of war being killed and beaten and tortured, or civilians. And the analogy was used like, well, it's kind of like, in the South during the American Civil War, these Confederates that were caught and like the violence toward them was like justified. That was basically the statement that I saw. And I must say, I did find it pretty disappointing to hear that kind of a viewpoint expressed. I mean, I don't think that I should have to explain the ways that like Ukraine is, or that Russia in the modern context is different from the fucking Confederacy. The Confederacy that, began a civil war, a devastating civil war in the United States, explicitly over the institution of slavery and prolonging and preserving the institution of slavery. That's what the Civil War was fought over. 600,000 Americans died in the Civil War, something like that? Am I underselling that? Versus Ukraine, who, regardless of like whether you want to talk about the anger that's out there or whether you think that Russian invasion was justified or not justified or whatever, Ukraine is objectively, the Ukrainian army is a NATO-backed, NATO-armed, CIA-trained proxy army. So to suggest that they have some kind of like moral position that justifies the torture and murder of prisoners of war or justifies attacks against Russian civilians is completely ahistorical, number one, and just doesn't make sense. Like, there is no way that anyone that's on the left, whether you're a communist, socialist, social democrat, anarchist, progressive, that you should be supporting for any reason a NATO-backed, CIA-trained proxy army. Like, at the bare minimum, to me, the leftist position should be, I'm staying out of this. That's the bare minimum progressive position on this. And the idea that anyone in the progressive community is not only like supporting the endless arms transfers, supporting the endless support of NATO and the CIA training to these groups out of some like moral stance. I mean, I just think that's completely ridiculous. Again, like comparing Russia to the Confederacy, or suggesting that Ukraine is occupying some like moral high ground that allows them to justify the torture and murder of POWs and the murder of civilians. And again, I think focusing on the civilian stuff is important. We've seen people cheering on that bombing of the bridge into Crimea. We saw civilians get incinerated in that bombing, and people celebrated that, of course. Comparing Russia to the Confederacy is crazy. No, it's fucking ridiculous. And completely ahistorical. So you saw people celebrating Russian civilians being killed in the bombing of the bridge on Crimea. They were celebrating this. You've seen people celebrating, the average person's life being made more difficult through sanctions. And you saw this week, like, how people were encouraging and celebrating the idea of the government being overthrown by this, like, reactionary private military company. Or the idea that Russia needs to be remade along state line and like remade along Western lines, which the last time that happened was like a devastating human rights disaster for millions of people in Russia and throughout the Soviet Union. And people really have this idea that like Russian civilians have it coming, Russia's just so bad, and everything that they've done in Ukraine is just so bad that, Russians, they have it coming. These civilians. That's the people have genuinely argued this, and not right-wingers, not reactionaries, but people in like liberals, the progressive left, anarchists. They're saying like, well, the Russians they're not blameless. They support what their government's doing. Some Russians even like what their government's doing. And like a civil war in Russia would be fucking devastating for Russian people, the average person who has nothing to do with this. But people suggest that like, well, they support what their government's doing, so it's okay. And if that's really what your stance is, that Russia is just so bad and evil, and everything that they've done in Ukraine is so evil, that not only do like Russian soldiers deserve to be not only killed in the war, but also be treated with zero dignity, or not have the Geneva Conventions apply or anything like that. So if you're a soldier, you're just, all bets are off. No matter what happens to you, it's justified. But also civilians as well, because of how horrible Russia is and how everything they've done is so bad. And if that's really your stance, if it's really that your stance that like not only do Russian soldiers deserve to be treated in this way because of the Russian armed military, but civilians as well, then like objectively, by any standard, by any objective standard, you are arguing that American civilians deserve to... You're basically saying that terrorism against American civilians is totally justified. Because lots of Americans support what the American government is doing. And America has been objectively a more destructive, more violent, more hostile force or actor on the global stage than Russia has been. Like objectively. And if you really do suggest that, and Canadians as well, for sure, because Canadians are, thanks Johnny, because Canadians are, of course, enthusiastic little supporters, and what's the word I always use? They're enthusiastic junior partners in the Western imperialist project. So if you really do believe that Russia is so bad that, you know, their soldiers should be killed, their civilians should be bombed, and that's okay. They should have a civil war, which is, of course, going to be fucking devastating for millions of people. They should have that kind of like Western-led austerity and balkanization, which is going to be devastating for people. If you really do believe that, and apparently a lot of people do believe it, then objectively, you should also agree that Americans and Canadian civilians are legitimate targets then of terrorism. You know, but of course, no one makes this connection because people have this idea that Russia is somehow like uniquely violent and brutal. These people that have now, they're like the Russia phobia has become so pronounced that they really do believe that there's something in like the Russian gene that just, they're nihilistic and violent and brutal. No, by that logic, 9/11 was good. Exactly. And I'm not saying that, of course. I'm not saying that. But by that logic, the people that repeat that would be saying that. And yeah, I think that's bizarre as well, talking about the Russian gene and how they're uniquely predisposed to this kind of violence. When the Soviet Union, even though the Soviet Union were violent, like Amazing Bird Show, you're pointing out there was violence that happened during the Soviet Union, but it was also objectively a progressive force. It was making millions of people, they were not shy about being violent at all, of course, but they were also raising living standards for millions of people in Russia and elsewhere in the Soviet Union. They were supporting anti-colonial struggles in Korea and Vietnam and throughout Africa and Angola and all these places. Promoting like progressive values and human rights, women's rights. Like the Soviet Union was so far ahead of the West on women's rights, it's like absurd. You know, they were putting women into space when NASA only hired women as like fucking secretaries. Or maybe if they were really feeling generous, they'd let them do some of the math for the rocket science, you know? So I think you look at what the Soviet Union was doing and the objectively progressive goals that the Soviet Union had and that Russian socialism did, and the way that it inspired this totally alternate system to the brutally violent and genocidal colonialist system, you know, that it was in response to. The idea that you can take that and still assume that Russian people have some kind of like uniquely violent gene. When you look at the foundation of our own society, the genocide, like, it's just absurd. The genocide of indigenous peoples, the transatlantic slave trade, the entirety of the Cold War, the post-war period, killing 6 million people in Southeast Asia and millions more around the world to kind of enforce this neoliberal economic system at gunpoint throughout the whole world. Like, it's just a fucking, when you just take the violence and you hold them up side by side, there's just no comparison whatsoever. So the idea that you can live in Canada or the United States and suggest that there's something unique about the Russian gene that leads predisposed to violence and brutality, I think that's fucking absurd. I wonder what the total kills of Mao and Stalin is combined. Well, I wonder too, because when both Stalin took over the Soviet Union and Mao took over in China, life expectancy was in like the 30s for people that lived there. And by the time both of them left, it was decades higher than that. So regardless of whatever body count there were, you could make the objective case that millions of people's lives were improved dramatically. Millions of people's material conditions were improved dramatically through both Stalin and Mao. So I think this whole idea of their body count, their quote-unquote body count, is kind of ridiculous when you take that into effect as well. I wonder why the live time went up. Why do you think? I think it's because these people had access to like the ability to see a doctor. Do you think that might have had something to do with it? I think that might have had something to do with that. The fact that like people had could see a doctor, they could get an education. There were famines in both of these cases, of course, as famines were very common at that time. But after this kind of period of transitioning and collectivizing these farms and nationalizing some of these industries, people did have enough to eat. their basic needs were being met. So, like, seriously though, if your position really is that Russians are just so violent and nihilistic that they just deserve to have bad things happen to them, whether you're a Russian soldier or just a civilian, like this idea that some Russians support the government, yeah, no shit that they do. And when America was, killing 1 million people in Iraq and Afghanistan, and creating 32 million refugees and killing 6 million people in Southeast Asia, many Americans supported that as well. Did they deserve to be blown up? Did they deserve to be killed and maimed and tortured? Yeah, if you really think Russia deserves it, I think you should really take a long look at our own history and ask yourselves what we deserve. It is race, science, eugenics shit when you say Russia's predisposed to being corrupt or violent. All this shit about speaking out of the... I always laugh about that. Oh, their basic needs were being met, but they couldn't speak out against the government. Yeah, look at the George Floyd protests. Or how many activists are still alive from the Ferguson protests, and how many were found killed later in mysterious circumstances. Look at the George Floyd protests, though. The largest protest movement in modern American history. Many people were speaking out against the government. And people had their lives, not only were people killed, people had their lives ruined. People are still in jail to this time for burning cop cars that were left there clearly with the intent of having vandalism done to them, which they then used to throw people in jail for the rest of their lives, and zero actual changes to the government. So what the fuck is the point? What is our precious freedom of speech all about if it doesn't even... we can say these things, great. It doesn't actually impact anything or change anything. The U.S. jails people literally for being black. Yeah, before they even have a chance to speak out against the government, they just get shot by some fucking adrenaline-fueled pig on the street. And policing got worse. Yeah. There's more people being killed disproportionately black, but of all races, more people being killed today than there were prior to those protests. What is the big fucking obsession with speaking out against the government? People did speak out against the government and accomplished the opposite of what they wanted to accomplish. The people that didn't have their lives ruined over it. Malcolm X or MLK or Fred Hampton. And that's what I mean. After these kind of political assassinations in the 60s, like MLK or Malcolm X or Fred Hampton, then they just went right into the war on drugs so they could just jail and assassinate these potential black revolutionaries before they even got politically educated. Just instituting a new Jim Crow system after the Civil Rights Act. Oh, but you're so free to criticize the government, though. Yeah, you've got the cops in Atlanta want to spend millions of dollars of taxpayer money to build a training ground where they can train for future urban warfare situations, and you have them just executing protesters who are trying to speak out against the government, as you say, and they're just being executed by the police with zero consequence, zero repercussion. But, it goes back to what I was saying. I just think the whole Russia-Ukraine situation has been really disappointing to see people that on a number of levels, I respect a lot. And I hope people in the community do understand that I do have to walk this line and I can't be burning bridges with people because I do need to try and make a living doing this shit. So Like, I don't feel really like it's possible for me or a good idea for me to like specifically call out individuals that I have connections with who give takes on things that I find personally kind of abhorrent. I hope people understand that idea. But, you know, to see people in these sort of progressive media sphere justifying the murder and torture of like POWs, or justifying the murder of civilians, Russian civilians, because Russia bad, I think that's really a shame. And it's really unfortunate. And again, suggesting that, like, well, it's just like the Confederacy. Like, suggesting that, like, the Confederacy, which was, again, rebelling against the United States, specifically to preserve and prolong the institution of slavery, and suggesting that Ukraine, which is objectively, not in a conspiracy way, not in like a Russian propaganda way, is a NATO-backed, NATO-armed, CIA-trained proxy army, and suggesting that it's okay for them not only to, like, you know, we should support them even though they are backed by these like reactionary imperialist forces, but we should actually support their right to engage in illegal criminal violence against POWs and civilians because there's anger out there. Or suggesting that there's some link to be made between Russia being the Confederacy, you know? Russia, who, while we can denounce the invasion and talk about, you know, the invasion of Ukraine and point out that, like, no matter what justification you want to make for it, terrible things happen in any war, horrible crimes are committed, and Russia shouldn't be absolved of any of that. But also refusing to acknowledge the fact that they have had legitimate security concerns over the last couple of decades, but especially over the last 10 years. I mean, that's just not an analysis. You know? This is not, if you have this really childish fairy tale version of this, the Harry Potter version, the illegal, unprovoked invasion where Ukraine is just minding its own business, trying to be a Western-friendly, pro-LGBTQIA plus society, having sovereignty, and then being invaded by their big, mean, former ruler, right? They just invaded them for no reason, just because they don't like Ukrainians, because they want to genocide them. It's just completely ahistorical. It's complete baby talk. You know? It's total fucking nonsense. And I can expect that kind of shit out of like weird liberals. You know, in the progressive community, we got to do better than that. We have to do way better than that. And when you make this link between Russia and the Confederacy, or suggesting that it's like okay to commit violence against Russian POWs or civilians because it's just like, oh, people are angry. You know, there's a lot of anger out there because they were just illegally and immorally and unjustifiably provoked while they were minding their own business. I mean, it's just not accurate. It's just not accurate in any way. And, you know, I really would like to see better than that. Better analysis than that from people that claim to be in the kind of progressive left community or whatever, you know? Like I said, the bare minimum, if you're going to call yourself a progressive or whatever, is not supporting NATO. And just recognizing the obvious reality that Ukraine is a NATO-backed proxy army. And just on that level, just saying like, it's easy. It's really easy. I don't support the Russian invasion of Ukraine, but I also don't support Ukraine, a NATO-backed, NATO-armed, and CIA-trained proxy army. It's really easy to do that, you know? The soldiers in Vietnam were justified to burn down entire villages after raping all their women and children because they were mad that they were getting shot at. Yeah, there's a lot of anger out there when Viet Cong snipers were shooting Americans, and then they were hiding in these villages, and they didn't know which villagers were VC and who weren't, you know? And there's a lot of anger, you know? And again, if you really think that that's justified, that invading a country makes it justified, well, then any violence against any American troop or civilian is entirely justified. And I don't think people want to take that step. Nuance is hard. I got to pick a side. War is like sports to me. Well, this is the thing, too. It's like people get pressured to fall in line when it comes to these foreign policy things. And these people fail the test every time. You know? Of course, I don't support war. I don't support NATO. I don't support the American military. But you got to go after Gaddafi. Of course, I don't support war, and I don't support NATO. But of course, we can't support Assad. Assad's got to go. He's killing his own people in this civil war. We got to do whatever we can. Of course, I don't support American military. I don't support imperialism, but we got to back Ukraine. We got to back the endless arms transfers to Ukraine. You know, where does it stop? Where does it stop? It's really silly. No, they won't even take that step when they talk about Palestine. They won't still want to call it terrorism. Yeah, they certainly won't say that Palestinian terrorism against Israel is justified. You know, not even against military targets, but civilians. People are saying that it's okay if they're Russian. Like, I don't think people are really unpacking that logic and what that means and what they're supporting. And that's it. I think people that are have ties to the establishment and have want to have careers in media, they get the message and they toe the line. And like I said, I refuse to toe the line, and I've definitely had career setbacks as a result of it. I do have to try and maintain some semblance of connection to this world to try and grow this community and try and make a living off of this stuff. But that's one thing I'm not gonna fucking support NATO. As a progressive new media liberal, I stand fully with Lindsey Graham. Like, what? I just wish people would just take a moment to just take a step back and really think about who their allies are here. Like, because you're saying that it's completely unironically what the stance that people are taking. You know, it is insane to me. If corporate media wanted the West to hate Ukraine and like Russia, they could do it in 48 hours. And the hating Ukraine part is going to come eventually. When the blowback really hits, and when NATO armed and trained Ukrainian terrorists are engaging in violence in Western Europe or in America or Canada, which has already happened, like in the Christchurch mosque shooting in New Zealand, the shit has already happened. Or if if Ukraine falls out of line, through in the chaos, the failed state chaos, they elect some government that goes against NATO, they will flip that switch in the media, and people will get the message right away. Anyway, it's just been really frustrating over the last going on, what, a year and a half? To see repeatedly people that are on a number of levels I like and respect and admire and I think have good values just repeatedly take some of really atrocious stances on this. Supporting NATO, supporting Western imperialism, bending over backwards to justify the arming and the training of these like open fascist neo-Nazi militias. I mean, to go to the whole Confederacy thing, like listen, I'm not going to go ahead and claim that Russia's some progressive force in the world. I don't think that. For the reason why? Well, because the progressive government, the progressive system was overthrown to put in this like pro-Western, pro-capital oligarchy that was intentionally foisted on Russia. But when you're talking about the Confederacy, who left the United States to preserve the institution of slavery, and then you look at Ukraine, a former progressive ally of the Soviet Union that has been trying to preserve and rehabilitate the legacy of these nationalists who helped carry out the Holocaust and have been whitewashing the beautiful and noble legacy of heroic Ukrainian socialists who not only spent their lives, dedicated their lives to building socialism in Ukraine and throughout the rest of the Soviet Union and the world, and also fought correctly against fascism in World War II by the millions. And modern Ukraine right now is engaged in this process of whitewashing and rehabilitating that. So who's more like the Confederacy in that analogy? They're literally engaged in this process of rehabilitating this blatant, this openly white supremacist, anti-Semitic, fascist legacy versus, and justifying it by Russian aggression. Russia, who still, despite being a reactionary country themselves, still uphold this legacy of the Russians that died fighting fascism in World War II. To the tune of 27 million people. So which place is more like the Confederacy in that analogy? So, you know, it's been frustrating over the last year. I wish people would do better. It was funny this weekend seeing this like failed coup happen, and see people get all riled up. They were all ready for the collapse to come. Bernie also supporting Biden's handling of Ukraine-Russia war. No mainstream progressive goes against State Department. You're absolutely right. And you know who is going against it? Tucker Carlson, RFK Jr., all these reactionary right-wingers. And we've been helped, like it has helped them by abdicating this responsibility to take this difficult but correct moral stance of opposing NATO. It has helped the Tucker Carlsons of the world and these fucking reactionary grifters who are taking the very real concerns that people have about this and are using it to pull people into their reactionary worldview. Yeah, Corbyn is the only one who's been remotely good on it, as usual. So it's been disappointing the last year and a half seeing this kind of thing, and it's frustrating for me and disheartening to see people that I do like and respect take these stances which I consider to be really abhorrent. Yeah, the progressives in Congress retreated from a strongly worded letter when people with Ukraine flags in their bios got mad about them. And the whole thing about like, well, there's a lot of anger out there. The weird thing is that like, if you live in the West, if you don't live in Ukraine, like you should just shut the fuck up when it comes to like, well, they're justified to kill Russians because like why are you angry? You know, I get it to a certain extent. If you're just going about your business and Russia invades your country and you have to deal with the violence, the danger, the stress, the shortages, whatever. Yeah, I understand if you're angry. If you're American, what are you angry for? If you live in America, you don't even know anyone in Ukraine. You don't have family there. You don't know anyone there. What are you angry about? Why are you angry at Russia? Why are you justifying killing POWs and killing Russian civilians? Like, what the fuck? You don't even live there. It's really strange to me, folks. And just, I wish people would do better. And I keep restating this and re-saying the same thing. There's people that I really like and respect and admire a lot that I think have failed. They have failed over the course of the last year and a half and have twisted themselves into this pretzel justifying some really horrendous shit. Would love to publicly express discomfort about our deputy PM's various comments without being branded as a Putin enjoyer. Well, seriously. And people have said all kinds of things to me over the last year. Like, I try to have a thick skin, but yeah, people have said I support Putin. I think I love I'm a genocide lover and supporter. They said everything that they can fucking imagine about me just for saying, like, I don't support NATO. Anyway, that's my rant for the day, folks. I got to keep these short over the next week. We'll make one final plea here. If anyone, if this has been a place over the last year and a half where you've allowed yourself to preserve a little bit of sanity, where you feel like your views on this or your concerns about this are being
We simply
heard
use
and
the computer to
represented?
mark up the size of the account.
Vlad the Victor, thank you for the 300 friend coin. If you enjoy this content, if you like that the viewpoint that I have on here, which is both anti-imperialist and socially progressive, which seems like a lot of people really struggle with having these two viewpoints at the same time. I find it easy personally because I'm built different. If you think that it's a good thing to have this content out here on Twitch, please, if you can, subscribe to TRRS. Every little bit helps. It's the only way that I'm still able to do this program is through the support of this community. So if you can, please subscribe to TRRS for a measly $5.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Thank you, Carrier Wave. I really appreciate that. Thank you for the gifted sub. Rob eviscerates the Western left. Oh. If I felt like burning bridges, I really could. I've probably burned quite a few already just by trying to take my stance on this, which I've tried to be pretty fucking moderate.
Good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Thank you, Old Dutch, for the gifted sub as well. Very appreciate that, Old Dutch.
You've just become an elite member of the
goodness.
Friendship Triangle.
Pathogen. Thank you so much, Pathogen 7. That is so kind of you. Thank you for the 5 gifted subs, Pathogen 7. Or just Pathogen. Whatever. Thank you, Pathogen. Very, very kind of you. I mean, now it's probably worth pointing out before I go here that one more generous chatter could, in theory, drag me across the finish line for today. Again, I'm not expecting to hit the sub goal every day here. I'm on a shorter schedule. I'm going to really try. But it would be not doing my job to not point out rather, that one other generous chatter could.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob.
See, now it's even more insight. Bleep Lord, thank you for the gifted sub. Very much appreciated, Bleach Lord. Bleep. That's how much I appreciate it that I can't even talk. Bleep Lord, thank you for the gifted sub. Now we're literally just one 5 sub gift away. One generous chatter. In perfect keeping with history, though, calling for peace during war hysteria is thankless. Oh, and this is the scary thing too, Pathogen, is that like this is going to get worse. You know, the China stuff is going to really ramp up, and that's been one of the scariest things. Seeing the ways that
you've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
Oh goodness, Worldly Bong, thank you so much for the 5 gifted subs. Very, very kind of you. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, no, it's going to get more difficult. Like I might get to a point where I'm just not able to not do this shit anymore. Talk about how easy it is and legal for us, and how we can just speak out against the government. If the missiles start flying, we will not be able to speak out against it. We will not be. And it's scary to think about. Anyway, let's pick that up tomorrow. Okay? I really thanks again to everyone that supports the channel. I really, really do appreciate it so much. Thank you. I always get sentimental. It's probably kind of stupid. Like who am I? But as difficult as it is to make a living on this platform, it is an absolute dream for me that I am able to come on for the last 2 years and do this show and talk about these things and hang out with the folks in this community, and the fact that I'm able to make a living from that. And I need to be doing better. That's not your problem. That's my problem. But the fact that I've been able to make a living from that is literally a dream come true. It's really fucking amazing. And I really, really appreciate it. And if you ever feel like I'm getting arrogant or I'm cracking the whip too hard on this stuff, please don't forget that I love everyone that is able to support this show so much. Yeah, what do you mean no one's career went down the tube speaking out against the war in 2003? And yeah, even the people that did speak out of the war publicly, it was all the same shit. Oh, you support Saddam. You support Saddam Hussein. That must be the only reason why you would ever say these things. Like nothing has changed. Yes, 73% of Americans supported war in Iraq. And according to some people that talk about this shit, America is a legitimate military target. Not just American military, but American civilians are just legitimate targets. If they support or even if they don't, but if they support what their government's doing and their government is out there invading countries and bombing other countries, well, then they deserve to get bombed themselves. That's the argument that many people are making about Russia that don't seem to be willing to apply that logic to America or Israel or whoever else, you know? Anyway, thanks folks. Thanks for watching the stream. I'll be back tomorrow. I should be here every day this week. It'll be a little shorter schedule, but I will try my best to pack in all the content that you come to know and expect. And guest on Wednesday. I do have a guest coming on Wednesday. Before we go here, I haven't totally confirmed, but it's with at line goes down. Jorge Roca. Bad pronunciation. He's going to be coming on the show on Wednesday. I'll set that more up on tomorrow to explain more. That's all. Line goes down on Twitter. That's what his name is on Twitter. I'll talk to you tomorrow.